Hey everyone, what is going on? What is going on? My name is Curtis Brooks. I am a men's life coach. I help men communicate their way to healthy relationships. First, I want to apologize as you are reading on the show card. That is the correct time. It does say 9 p.m. Eastern time, so obviously I am late. But unfortunately, I had a personal matter that I had to take care of, and that had to come first. So, in the event, so I'm here now. So thank you for tuning in. If you are tuning in, we are on YouTube by the name or the username on YouTube is going to be Life Coach, the number 4 men. Again, on YouTube at Life Coach, the number 4 and men. So Life Coach, number 4 men. Life Coach 4 men. We're also on my personal Facebook page. You're more than welcome to check that out. That page is private under Curtis Brooks. You'll find a lot of the same content that I've been posting, so I'm pretty consistent on Facebook. So look me up on Facebook at Curtis Brooks. You may or may not be able to find me there, but I am there. I've been told that some people were having challenges finding me on Facebook over there. Also, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can search Curtis Brooks. The image that was on the show card, you'll be able to find me under that image as well. So today we are talking about more about communication. The title of this broadcast is I apologize, kind of rush here, but men who communicate. I apologize, but men who communicate can heal and build. So once again, men who communicate can heal and build. And it's interesting because as I was kind of doing my time, or at least spend my time before the Lord, just kind of popped up in my heart, just kind of was given to me, how important communication is. And obviously it's not just for men. You know, men aren't only people or only individuals who have issues with communicating, but it is a worldwide thing. Communication fails us all times, at all times on different levels, down from our children to situations at work. So communications can be negative and obviously be positive as well. But today I want to dive deeper into this communication. And I actually have a little slide I'm going to put on the screen here in just a second here. But before I do that, like I said, we're talking about communication. Men who communicate can heal and build. So you cannot have one without the other. You can't put the cart before the horse, so to speak. You can't build and then heal. No, through communication, the healing has to come first. Okay, remember that. Through communication, the healing has to come. The healing will come first. So first the communication, then the healing, and then there's this place, I would say, kind of like that aha moment. Maybe we call it restoration, rebuilding, or whatever the case might be. But there is absolutely that aha moment where when you have communicated to a degree or to a level where you make connection with the man in the mirror. That's essentially what it's about, making that connection with the man in the mirror, because oftentimes just life in itself, we lose sight of that person that we're looking at in the mirror. And in most cases, we may not know who that man is in the mirror. So we can lose sight, and it's all about learning who that man in the mirror is. And so that's what communication does. It really just helps us to remove the burdens that life has placed on us and come to a place that we can commune, if you will. And so that actually brings me to one of the words that I want to talk to you about. Is called commune, and that's spelled COMMUNE. And from the word commune, we get communication, we get communion. And so we get probably commitment as well. So I can't verify that, but I want to put this on screen here. I think it's the letter G. Yeah, I think it's in the wrong area, but let's see here. Let's put it on the other side. So what you're looking at on screen right now is a definition of the word communion or commune. And so as I was doing my research, and I was like, wait a minute. Excuse me. This is very interesting. Take a drink of water here. Excuse me. I was thinking that, wait a minute, this is very interesting because from the word commune, we get communication or communicate or communion. And so it's interesting because when we look at the definition here on screen, we look at, and I apologize, I should have had it in front of me, but when we look at the definition of the word commune, we see that it means to converse, talk together, usually with profound intensity, intimacy, interchange thoughts or feelings. And I thought that was very interesting because when we communicate, we don't often think about that because we communicate on so many different levels. So FYI, some of us may understand or may not understand, but communication is always happening. So whether a person is folding their arms or the hands are by their side or they're assumingly looking as if they're at a place of peace, they're communicating because we can put a word or at least come to a place of where they're at. We can say, oh, that person looks peaceful. Or that person looks agitated, that person looks confused. And so whether or not the individual is saying something, it's beside the point. They are still communicating. So communication or any kind of conversation, spoken or non-spoken, verbal or non-verbal, there's always communication going on in this space called Earth. Always. We are always communicating. Something is always happening. So we must understand that. So back to this word commune. I just read to you the very first definition. Again, to converse or talk together, usually with profound intensity, intimacy, etc. Interchange thoughts or feelings. So the word commune, obviously, again, I just read the definition to you. There is a level of intimacy. There's a level of connection. So that word interchange means that it's a two-way road, if you will, or two-way street, if you will. So there's something going in, something going out, something leaving, something coming back. And so there's that interchange. And so again, there's always something happening with communication. So when we break it down and we get to the word commune, we see commune is a level of intimacy, intensity, or passion. Communicating in a more passionate way. So here, let's go back to the word communication. So understanding that communication is, or its base is commune. What happens oftentimes, as I mentioned earlier, about that man in the mirror or woman in the mirror who does not know who they are, but begins to take upon the many different ideas that the world has placed upon us, or who our parents say we should be, or looking to our grandmother, looking to our grandfather. Regardless, communication is taking place. And what happens with communication, or just life in itself, pressure comes with communication. And I'll explain that. There are things, and I mentioned this, I think, in a past video last couple of weeks ago. There are things in this world what we call constructs, and more commonly known, we call them social constructs. These are ideas, fixed ideas, if you will, only in our mind. These are things that the world has created. Again, they don't necessarily exist, but they exist. They don't necessarily exist on paper to a degree, but they're more so what man has created, and what we may say, well, okay, $5 represents $5. 5 $1 bills, or just this money represents an exchange for merchandise or some kind of product or service. So we come to an agreement on such things as cities, states, and just different things of that nature. Again, all what we call social constructs. And when we arrive at that place, we have to understand that there was communication that built this. Again, whether we understand it or not, there was communication that created this. And as the communication has built this or created this, there essentially has to be the removal of certain information at some point. And the healing piece of what we are, hey Daryl, what's going on, man? The healing piece, healthy boundaries, absolutely. Daryl says healthy boundaries. So the healing piece comes in when we're talking about communication, is that we have to remove the old paradigms, the old constructs, if you will. And most of us, to include myself, this is all that we have known. We have known the constructs that have been built and created in this world. And we may not have created it ourselves individually, but the society, their societal views and ideas and opinions about you and I, about who they think we should, how we should act, how we should respond, who they think they are, who they think we are, and things of that nature. And this is long before we come to a place where we are understanding who we are. Again, that man in the mirror, in most cases, doesn't understand who he or she is. But nevertheless, it's been communicated to them. So how do we get out of this? How do we get out of this? Interesting. Just as I mentioned moments ago, we must be prepared to remove the old constructs. The old constructs that the world has given us, an idea of who they say we are. Well before we've come to a place of understanding who we are to ourselves, or at least understanding, well, my name is Curtis, your name is whatever. But my point is that when we look in that mirror, more often than not, life has been communicated to us. And whether we come into agreement or not, life has absolutely been communicated to us. And as I mentioned moments ago, the only way that we can remove ourselves from the constructs that have been created is that we must communicate. But we must go beyond just communicating. We must get to a place where we are communing, if you will. I just read the definition to you moments ago about the word commune, being able to, or conversing on a level of intensity, intimacy. And so with this word commune, I said, wait a minute now. There are lots of people that don't believe in God or have some kind of faith. And I'm not here to question that, but to know that the only way the burdens of life can be removed is that we communicate. And the challenge is, I did a post on this earlier, the challenge is that when we communicate, we're communicating often not about the things that matter, the things that are on our heart, the things that are, again, that are pressing for us. Oftentimes we don't communicate those things. And the challenge is that when those things are not communicated in an effective manner, where we are making contact, getting in touch with that man in the mirror or that woman in the mirror, what happens is that the communication in itself, because we have to understand that the very words, this is just through the scriptures, the Bible, the very words that we speak, they're not empty, folks. They're not empty. And because they're not empty, that means that they carry weight. That means that the words that we speak carry weight. There's substance to them. There's a scripture in the Bible that says, God watches over his word to perform it. He watches over his word to perform it. So whatever's been spoken through no understanding even of our own, there is a construction taking place There is a building being created. There is a wall that's being built because the language that we speak, it absolutely carries weight. And when we talk in such a manner, or different things have been given to us, it's pressure. It's pressure coming from the outside, and it's pressure taking place on the inside, the pressure that's being built up on the inside. Because the very dialogue that's taking place here on the inside for all of us. Again, remember, as I stated earlier, communication is always taking place. Communication never stops. Whether you're asleep, unaware, again, verbal, nonverbal, communication is always taking place in the earth. And so this information here that's going, the thoughts, if you will, that's going back and forth, whether they're spoken or not, it's still communication. And because the word that we speak, as God says, he watches over his word in the book of Isaiah. He watches over his word to perform it. That means that the word will not, he says further that the word that he's spoken will not come back void. It will go out and to create that which it was performed. So the very words that we speak, whether they were spoken intentionally or not, they're sent out on a mission. And when we don't fulfill that assignment, when we say, oh, I want to be, let's just say hypothetically, I want to be an astronaut. Again, I'm just throwing something out here. I want to be a teacher. A person can have invested so much of their studying, their time, and learning certain things. And it's no different when a person gets divorced. The word divorce in itself means to separate. It means to pull apart. And if you understand it, again, more on a spiritual level, there is a tearing that takes place. There is a ripping apart. Something's being ripped apart or torn apart. And when we have such thoughts or ideas, things that we want to accomplish, and we don't, as individuals, we don't move out on those things that were given to us or ideas. It becomes pressure. It becomes pressure. Not only the pressure that we have built up on the inside because we didn't follow through with what was given to us, or the idea of us wanting to accomplish becoming a teacher, an astronaut, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever the case might be. Because we didn't follow through with what was given to us, oftentimes, again, this creates pressure, not to mention the pressure that comes out, the pressure that comes from society, and it can absolutely make us feel like we want to burst or something is about to pop. So we have to remove the old constructs. And this is why it is so important, or this is why our faith is so important. Going back to that word I mentioned to you, commune. Conversing with a level of intensity and intimacy. We not only do that with our lovers, our wives, or significant others, but we can do that with our God, our Heavenly Father. And so when we are able to communicate, to give God our heart, and to place those burdens and cares upon Him, what happens? When we're communicating our heart, He releases the burden. He removes the burden. He lessens the burden. The burden is only, remember, the burden is only lessened to the degree of your faith. To which measure you meet, it will be measured against you or back to you. So it's the same thing as if someone is pushing something against a wall Perhaps a wall is maybe a 50-pound wall, but your pressure against that wall is not equal to it. So you're not going to be able to put your hand through that wall. But the greater amount of pressure that you place upon that wall, more than that wall can sustain, you'll either put your hand through the wall or you'll knock the wall over. So it's important to understand that whether it's knocking walls over or communicating, we can only communicate or understand to the level of which is given to us. And that's why it is so important for us to understand that with communication comes levels of communication. With communication, not any different from studying something. It comes the levels or the depths of your studying. And the more you study something, the more information you can attain. So, case in point or an example, if I'm studying science or something in science, Newton's law or something like that, and I'm perhaps a new student at this particular information in regards to Newton's law, I'm probably not going to get a whole lot of information right away. But the more time I spend with that information, the more time I spend with that information, the more that information is communicated back to me. So I'm communicating in the sense of, I'm communicating in the sense of making my desire known by actually putting forth the time and the faith to believe something. I'm looking for something. But the more time I spend with those desires and sit there actually practicing that for that which I'm going after, the more it is also going to be applied back to me. And so with that information, we can again, take hold of different understandings. And it's no different with our relationships with each other, with our wives, significant others, with our employers. So whether you are in leadership, whether you are a manager, supervisor, it doesn't matter. Communication is absolutely key for our success on all levels. And it's interesting that I'm going to read just really quick here, is that communication is access. Communication is absolutely access, and many of us don't understand that. And with that understanding, or without that understanding, I should say, understanding that communication is access, we are essentially stuck in a place of a certain reality that we create. That's without the understanding that communication is access. Communication opens doors. But you first have to desire communication. You first have to desire to know something. You first have to desire to gain insight. You first have to desire to have a different perspective. I want to learn more. I want to absolve myself of this pain that I'm feeling. I want to build a better relationship. I want to build a business, whatever it may be. Communication is the key. More than just a tagline, communication is the key. It absolutely is the key, folks. Because the burdens of life that we all may feel at different times, they come with communication. Either something has been communicated already, or something is on its way down the pipeline, so to speak, or it's something that we believe. Again, it's something that's been communicated already. And unfortunately, many times, because of our lack of communion, or commune, as I read to you earlier, the definition, again, having a place to release that burden that we all will deal with in life. oftentimes because we have, again, few places, not because they're not available, but because we don't understand. Our understanding is limited in this space. We think communication is just communication. Sure, it is if you're just talking about nothing. But when you understand how communication works and the power of communication, it will absolutely open doors for us. It will give us access to certain things. Much like the example of the person I mentioned who, again, this is an example, the person who is perhaps studying Newton's law. No, I don't know a whole bunch about Newton's law, but my point is that whatever the person or individual is studying or whatever you're desiring to know, if you open your heart to receive something, you are now communicating your desire. And when you communicate your desire, that which you have communicated your desire to will then begin to communicate back to you. So with the measure that you meet, the measure that you place in front of you, or to the level that you're desiring something, to that level it will be measured back to you. Communication is absolutely the key. It's absolutely powerful. Communication is the key, is access, not only the key, but is access to your self-worth. My self-worth, your self-worth. It's access to your self-esteem. Without communication, in most cases, without communication, many of us, we have been left with the idea of who our mothers think we are, who our fathers may think we are, how the world sees us, without communication. This is what the world has put together, but without our own voice, being able to communicate what we see and our own desires, we're subject to take upon the desires and the variables that this world deals with because we don't have our own voice. So with communication, we can acquire our own voice. And when you acquire your own voice, you have now gained access. You begin to open the door to so much awesomeness. Open the door to your self-worth. Open the door to your confidence. Open the door to a greater level of self-esteem. It's all about communication. Open the door to promotions. And here, when I say promotions, I'm saying that the person themselves has to be promoted within. Oftentimes, we as people, we are looking for someone to promote us. We want people to promote us. And when we don't get the promotion, it's pity on me and I deserve the promotion. Absolutely. You very well may deserve the promotion. But until the promotion takes place on the inside, the promotion on the outside will never take place. And this is why I believe that oftentimes we have the wrong people placed in leadership, because they did not receive the promotion that comes from the inside. And much like many of us, again, societal views and opinions and things of that nature, leadership is comprised of, obviously, all of what I've just mentioned. And with that, you have more of the same people placing people in leadership. And it's very rare that and I'm just going to go out on a limb. It's not to say it doesn't happen, but it's rare that we deal with or have people who have that wherewithal, who have that understanding, who have that something about them that say, wow, man, this person is really sharp. I like him. I like her. They're going to make a great president, a great whatever, a great supervisor. This is the right person leading this company. And it's something about that connection when there's the right person leading an organization, the right president, the right leadership, or the right politician for the particular state or city. It's something about that makes a connection with us all as people, because innately we know what the right thing is. But here's the challenge. Oftentimes, because we have all been enamored, we've all been carrying such a burden from life, from the very beginning. Communication is pressure, folks. Communication is pressure. And so because we've all been carrying this burden on all different levels, the communication coming from places just all over, essentially, spoken and unspoken. Whether you're saying it to yourself, or I'm saying it to you, or I'm saying it to myself, it doesn't matter. The communication is a force. It is absolutely heavy. It's something that carries weight. And because many of us don't understand that the weight that our words, the very words that we speak, that the weight that they carry, when something is repeated over and over and over and over, at first the person may not remember. Let's say a script, for example. When a person is given a script of some sort, it could be anything, just any kind of script. When a person is given a script, they may not know what that script has, what it says. It may be their first time reading it. But how do they remember the information? They have to repeat the information. They have to practice. They have to open their hearts with a desire to learn something. And when you open your heart to desire, with a desire to learn something, whatever it may be, it then will be communicated back to you, because you're opening your heart to receive it. So essentially you're communicating to it with questions that are spoken or unspoken, that are going on in here, whether we're spoken those questions or not. It's still communication. And as the individual is studying that script or reading that book or studying to become a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, it doesn't matter. When we open our hearts to receive something, whatever it may be, we are in fact communicating. We are in fact in a place, when I mentioned the definition of the word commune, communicating with a level of intensity and intimacy, and or both. Passion behind your communication. So when we open our hearts, we can open up a world of opportunities. And that is the reason why communication gives us access. It gives us access to worlds that we don't quite understand. But the lack of communication, and when I say communication, I'm not just speaking of just talking to be talking. I'm not just speaking of the rhetoric, the jargon that takes place at work and on your job and things of that nature. No. Well beyond that. When I speak of communication, I'm speaking of a level of conversing with intensity, intimacy, looking at the man in the mirror, a level of intensity, intimacy that reveals the man or woman in the mirror. And without those things being revealed to us, coming to a place and understanding who we are, not according to societal views, but according to your faith, And the faith that I'm in most cases speaking of is your faith in God. That's the reason why faith is so important. Because through a communing within your faith, you open up your heart to receive, and then that which you have opened your heart to receive, to communicate to, you're speaking in prayer, perhaps, meditating. That which you are open your heart to receive, it will be given back to you to the level that you open your heart, to the level of your communication, to the intensity or the level of intimacy of your communication. It will be measured back to you. This absolutely is for leaders. I think one of the biggest problems that we have with leadership on different levels, whether it be large organizations over 100,000 people, employees, or organizations with 50, 10, 500, doesn't matter. I think one of the biggest challenges is that we have leadership. They themselves have not looked in the mirror and come to an understanding of who that person is in the mirror. All too often our businesses, if you will, and I'm going to maybe do a live stream on this at one point, but all too often our businesses, our jobs, our titles, the person who is CEO at ABC organization or CFO, COO at ABC organization, or a clerk at a company, doesn't matter. All too often, the people who are working those positions, different positions or titles, they're completely different from the person at home. The person that their wives know, the person that their husband may know, the person that their children know. Completely different people. Why is that? Simply because the man in the mirror doesn't know who he is. And if the man in the mirror does not know who he is, it's hard for us to know who we're dealing with. And if you kick this up about 10, 20, 30 notches, can you imagine a city, a town, a municipality, a city, a state, a country, or just millions and millions of people who don't know the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror? Can you imagine to what level the leadership is? What level of atrocity that comes through the leadership? We're looking at two different people from night and day. The person who's on their job and the person who comes home and plays daddy or mommy or whatever the case might be. We're looking at two different people. But oftentimes, these are the people who are at the helms of such large organizations. And it's no wonder that our organizations lack the compassion, the understanding. It's no wonder. It's not the organizations themselves, it's the people who lack the integrity, the emotional intelligence that comes from healing eventually. And I think I mentioned this earlier. I did a post on this very conversation, and I kept it brief, but it was, again, the title, the very title of this broadcast is Men Who Communicate Can Heal and Build. And just think how much rhetoric that we've all heard throughout the course of our lives. From pastors to lay people, to elders at a church, it doesn't matter. Can you imagine how much rhetoric we've heard in the face of religion? And honestly, there again, people just don't know. They just don't know. That's why I'm doing this broadcast, so that you can understand the power of communication. It's not just rhetoric. It's communicating with a level of intensity, a level of intimacy. Here first, so that we get to know who we are, so that we get to understand who we are. And when we heal, we begin to restore the things that have been broken along the way, the things that we have overlooked. We begin to restore our self-esteem. Again, having access, not access through what society has given us, but no. I'm talking about an access through a faith that says you are more than conquerors through him that first loved you. The word conqueror implies an old regime or mindset that if we're trying to conquer something, you first have to bring it under submission. We first have to oppress something in order to conquer something. And that's not what this is about. And oftentimes the communication that we have all come into, myself included, has been communication about oppression, communication about conquering something, communication about controlling something or someone. So this type of communication takes place on the inside. The communication that I'm talking about, it takes place on the inside. It's when we communicate with ourselves on such a level of intensity, such a level of intimacy, that we unlock the door. We unlock the door to that person that's been crying on the inside, that's been wanting to get out of this thing, but not quite sure how to get out. That has, if you will, are just essentially in a cube or in a box, and they're looking up, looking down, and the right to the left, and pressing against the walls, and not feeling or not believing that they can get out. Because the systems of communication has built walls, constructs, whether we see the building or you don't. Communication in itself has created constructs. And the feeling of a person being on the inside, trapped, not being able to get out, not being able to access the very thing that they have been given the power to. And in most cases, they don't know that they have the power. Because unless we take hold of the communication ourselves and begin to connect with this person on the inside, the man, the woman in the mirror, someone else seemingly always holds the key. All right, folks, that is going to do it. I'm going to wrap it up. It has been about 45 minutes. That has been my time. So, Daryl, thank you for stopping in. I'm not sure if you're still there. I'll go ahead and put your comment on screen here. Again, thank you for stopping in, Daryl. Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, guess we won't. Won't be able to put the comment on the screen, but Daryl says his comment says communication with your healthy boundaries in place takes practice. Absolutely, absolutely, Daryl. So again, I'm not sure if you're still here. I know I've been kind of yammering on for a while, but this is absolutely important to me, and I hope that you will. I hope that you've gained a different perspective about communication now, and the importance of communication, the importance of uh, coming to a place or finding a place, be it at your home or be it at the bathroom stall in your job, or whatever it may come, wherever this communication may take place, where you can begin to understand and know that man in the mirror, that woman in the mirror, and begin to reveal yourself to the world, if you will, and begin to come into a place of coming to your best self. And as Daryl said, communication, absolutely. Knowing our boundaries, it takes practice. And he mentioned healthy boundaries. That's important, not just boundaries, but having those healthy boundaries. But it first starts with unlocking the door and giving that person, that man, that woman in the mirror, access to the rest of the world. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Yeah, I could probably go on and on, but I will stop it there. And I want to say thank you for stopping by. And I apologize once again. I have erred. I forgot to put the comments up, and they may be around here somewhere. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to do. Doing a one-man show, it's kind of hard, but anyway, guys, that's going to do it. We've been talking about men who communicate can heal and build. Once more, I hope this conversation has been a blessing to you. I hope this conversation has really given you a different perspective, because after all, that's what we need, is a different perspective. Information that gives us a different perspective. So before I get more into that, I'll say ciao for now, guys, and we will talk with you later. Bye-bye.